All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, in life, no matter how deep you try to bury the truth, eventually it always springs forth. Does not matter what you do to conceal it, it always comes out in the end. And when it comes to Mr. LeBron James, no matter how much the liberal sports media tried to concoct and create this narrative that he's the greatest player of all time, that he's greater than Michael Jordan, despite his many shortcomings in the playoffs and in big moments, you are who you are. You are what you are. And I stated after game one that you're going to see LeBron James incrementally lose heart, especially as it becomes more and more apparent to him that the Golden State Warriors just are of a higher caliber, of a higher class than his team and him. And him. Of course, he's going to try to disassociate himself from his team, as I told you, brothers, he would. That was the greatness, that was the profundity of the trade that occurred along the trading deadline. It was perfect for him. Not only did it bring in fresh new blood, players who were going to be willing to show their obeisance to him and be cogs in the LeBron James system, it also gave him an out so that when everything failed, he could say, I'm not on a good team. And that's exactly what he did in his press conference subsequent to game three, as he was sitting there all jolly and gleeful, laughing and giggling and singing Kevin Durant's praises. Who does that? And you're supposed to be the top dog in the NBA. You're down 0-3 and you're there giggling about Kevin Durant. That's why I had him in my top 10, just because of his overwhelming ability and talent. But I don't see him ever breaking that top 5, man. I just don't see it. Especially now that it's very clear, it's abundantly clear that he's going to leave the Cavaliers and try to shack up with another team. Even though I don't truly believe that there's a perfect situation out there for him to overcome the Golden State Warriors, who just have a perfect synergy. Other than some type of catastrophic injury to one of their major players, I don't see anybody beating them. Because to be quite frank with you, people are making a huge deal about how the Rockets took them 7 games. That's a 5-game series if Andre Iguodala doesn't get hurt. That's a 5-game series. And now, in the aftermath of Game 4, where LeBron James pretty much revealed himself to be a quitter when things are not going his way, many of the former NBA players are going to start to speak the truth. And I believe that they've known this all along, but they get on TV and they have to say what their editors want them to say, what their coordinators, what their managers at these various TV stations want them to say about LeBron James, because it's very important that you build up the best player in your league today and not just live in the past. But all 3 of them are going to confess. Really, all 4 of them, counting the MC, Casey Stern. So let's hear what they have to say.
Player reaction here on set as well. Casey Stern, Grant Hill, Chris Webber, Charles Barkley. A lot of the conversation as we're watching the game, as it will be now moving forward, about LeBron, but in this case, about what he didn't do with everything on the line, Charles.
Before Charles Barkley speaks, let me say this about LeBron James. He truly is someone who suffers from an overabundance of gifts. It leads to a divine flaw, that being hubris, that great and overwhelming pride and arrogance that one starts to embody whenever they're too good in a certain field. And you always have to make sure that you moderate that, because people will try to tell you how great you are, how they're fans of yours. This is an attempt by them to force you into a situation where you start to believe the hype. And always remember that the same people who pat you on the back today will be the ones stabbing you in the back tomorrow. And that is what is going to occur with Mr. LeBron James, because he's so full of himself that he's truly unable to understand how to fit within a team framework. That's why he has to reboot every 3 or 4 years. If he doesn't reboot, the team has to reboot in the form of some type of mega trade. He was pretty much unable to stay in Miami because the situation became so untenable. Not because Dwayne Wade was getting old or all those other excuses, but because Pat Riley was not going to go along with his bullshit. Pat Riley is a real alpha male. Pat Riley and that culture is what taught LeBron James how to win. And despite people's protests, he has had a great coach. Eric Spoelstra was a great coach. It's just that LeBron did not stay there long enough for Eric Spoelstra to get the credit that he deserves. He came back to Cleveland. He was fortunate to win a championship in 2016 because of the actions of Draymond Green. His team was decimated last year and this year, even worse this year. But he has the cover story of saying that, well, I'm playing with a bunch of bums. Even though there are many name and notable players on that team, but they were just unable to fully acclimate themselves to the LeBron James system. And you're going to hear more and more former teammates of LeBron start to come out and speak about him. But is LeBron James as good as Michael Jordan? No, he's not. Is he better than Michael Jordan? Of course not. Is he as good as Kareem, Bill Russell, or Magic, or Larry Bird? No, 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 and no. Okay? No. So before I had him at 5A, now I'm going to drop him down to a full 6. And I truly have to think back about where he fits in context to the players that are underneath him from 7 to 10. I have to consider dropping him below a Wilt Chamberlain or even below a Shaq. Even though the reason why I put LeBron above Shaq, and many people might not understand why, is because I feel like Shaq left so much on the table. There's a player who won 4 championships and scored almost 29,000 points, and Shaq should have had 40,000 points and 6 or 7 championships. I have Hakeem below LeBron, even though Hakeem was better at his position than LeBron was at small forward. But LeBron has had more success. But like I said, right now it's very fragile. And Tim Duncan is the greatest power forward of all time. You could certainly make a case that Tim Duncan should be above LeBron. He's beat him twice in the finals. 2007, LeBron was precocious. I mean, it is what it is. But I may have to consider reorganizing my hierarchy in the top 10. As of right now, LeBron is a solid 6. He no longer is a threat to pass Larry Bird.
I was so disappointed. His passiveness, and it drained all the energy out of the rest of the Cavaliers.
I wasn't disappointed at all. I expected this from LeBron James. He spent the entire press conference after Game 3 talking about Kevin Durant and kissing his ass. So by doing that, he was telling the basketball media and the viewers at large, I'm officially Kevin Durant's bitch, at least for this season. He got me. He got me last year, and he got me this year. This year, I was smart enough to not go out and try to cover him. Last year, I was dumb enough to try to contest him, and he hit a J right in my face. I was not going to allow it to happen this year. So I sent J.R. Smith's ass out there to go guard him. LeBron is something else, man.
He came out passing the ball. I wanted to see somebody fight to the finish. But number one, congratulations to the Warriors. But that left me mad more than anything. For him to come out and play like that with the game on the line, just be so passive. And you can see it drained the energy out of the rest of the players.
The reason why LeBron's actions drain the energy out of the rest of his teammates is because, number one, they're tired of his diva antics and they don't really like him. Number two, he's not a real leader. What LeBron is an uber talented individual who's able to take his style of play and is actually able to take an NBA team deep into the playoffs. That's part of his greatness. That's what makes him great. That's why I always compare him to the lead in a rock and roll band or one of these actors who always has to be in a vanity piece. Like a Robert De Niro or an Al Pacino back in the day, back in the late 70s, early 80s. They were known for being big hams, especially Pacino. That's LeBron or Marlon Brando, somebody like that. He's unable to be part of an ensemble cast. That's why you'll notice, even in the acting world, when those great actors get old, that's when they become part of ensembles. When they're young, they have to be in vanity pieces to highlight their magnificent talent. That's LeBron. Now, will he ever get to the point where he's ready to be part of an ensemble? Who knows? But I don't trust him to be willing to play off the ball. That's why I'm not crazy about that situation in Philly. I think that Joel Embiid is on record as stating that he wants LeBron there. I think that he just thinks he wants LeBron there. I think that having LeBron there and wanting LeBron there are two totally different things. He's not a real leader. Why is that? Because a great leader knows what his place is in the hierarchy. Like Michael Jordan never tried to usurp Phil Jackson. He acted as a lieutenant under Phil Jackson. Just like Scottie Pippen acted as a lieutenant under Michael Jordan. They respected the hierarchy because they respected the system. LeBron James runs his own system, so what hierarchy is he going to respect?
Because they fed off his body language. Just disappointed personally.
Yeah, I agree with Chuck. The body language of LeBron really, I think, took the energy from his...
Look at Iguodala. That's the importance of Iguodala. People continuously are talking about what if Chris Paul played in their series against the Golden State Warriors, would they have beaten Golden State? Nobody's talking about Iguodala. If you have Iguodala out there for the Golden State Warriors, that Rockets series does not go past 5.
From his players, and when you look, LeBron was 7 for 13, Kevin Love was 4 for 13, and Rodney Hood 4 for 14. In this game, there's no way a player off the bench should have the most shots, and for that.
Now look at LeBron spazzing out on his teammates. You know why LeBron is so upset? He's upset just like a bad girlfriend is upset with her man for silliness like him not being able to read her mind. That's why LeBron is upset with his teammates, because he wants to know how come they're not reading his mind out there on the basketball court. You know why they have to read his mind, brothers? Because they're not running a real system. Isaiah Thomas exposed that. That's why he kept talking about why they're not practicing. He could not believe that they did not practice. That's why their defensive principles are so poor. That's why oftentimes they don't know where each other is supposed to be out there on the basketball court, both offensively and defensively, because they don't practice. I think LeBron just comes to the facility, works out, takes a couple of syringes in his ass, allegedly, and then goes and shoots about 500 shots and takes his ass home. Because those are Isaiah Thomas's words, not my words. He's the one who said that they don't practice. So it makes a lot of sense as to why their synergy is so poor. Their chemistry is so poor out there on the floor. That's why he gets so frustrated. He has the nerve to sit up in press conferences talking about Golden State. Dude, Golden State runs a real system. They run a real system. That's why I'm not a believer that he's going to sign with San Antonio. That would be his best chance of beating Golden State if he were to humble himself and go to San Antonio. But I don't think he's going to do that because his ego is just so large. But we'll see. Desperate times demand desperate measures.
For that, as great as LeBron is, the 50-point games, the triple-doubles, you know, he's raised the bar to where we expect him to come out and to control the game from beginning to end, and today, he didn't do that.
Yeah, no, Chuck said it best. Disappointing. You know, he just did not seem mentally or emotionally
He
packed it in.
I mean, he gave up, right?
He gave up. He gave up.
It seemed like he gave up, right?
Yes,
Particularly when the game was somewhat close there at halftime,
Yeah.
maybe a 5-point lead. They got down, but they fought back in the game in the first half, and in the second half, in the third quarter, I think maybe one shot. I mean, it was not what I expected. And
Well, I won't say that it wasn't what I expected, but I wasn't surprised. That's LeBron James 101. Once he goes down 0-3, he's going to pack his bags. I mean, hell, we can go back to LeBron James's first stint with the Cleveland Cavaliers that ended in 2010 when they lost to the Boston Celtics in 6 games. And it was very clear that he said to himself, you know what, I'm not going to play hard for or with this team anymore, for whatever reason. Whether it was because his teammate Delonte West was screwing his mother, or because he already knew that he was leaving and he was going to go to Miami. It was very obvious that he was no longer willing to put forth 100% verve and effort anymore. And people like Shannon Sharp will say, well, wait a minute, LeBron had 27, 19, and 10 and all that other shit. When LeBron is done, he's done. And you can always tell. And I said this last year in the finals, every game you're going to see LeBron James lose more and more heart. That's just how he does.
And we had all these conversations and debates about GOAT and this, that, and the other, which, you know, you can't really have that real, you know, you can't really make an argument for that. And to me, when
you never could make an argument for that, Grant Hill. That's what I mean when I tell you, brothers, many of these former players, they get prompted by studio execs to pump up LeBron James and have these dumbass fans out there believing that shit. Pump up LeBron to make people believe that he's as good as Michael Jordan. That's why you have these jackasses on the internet. Yeah, he's 3-6 in the finals, but wait a minute, he played tougher teams. He played bunch of damn puppets and fanboys.
when you come out and you're passive and you kind of just don't give it your all when your team needs you, you can't really have that discussion as far as I'm concerned.
G-Heap.
As far as I'm concerned as well, and you brothers should never have been having that discussion in the first place. At the end of the day, greatness in the NBA, transcendent greatness, is about what you do in the biggest moments. I'm willing to give a curve to many of the transcendent players that played in the 60s because they can't control how their front office acquired players, and unfortunately for them, they could not move around. That's why you have to evaluate a Jerry West, an Oscar Robertson, a Wilt Chamberlain almost on a curve. That's why I tell many of Kobe Bryant's fans, I have him at about 14, and you're lucky that he's that high. Because I could easily put Oscar Robertson over him. Oscar Robertson goes to the Milwaukee Bucks and gets to 2 finals in 4 years, 3 years, and wins 1? And this was in his 30s. He didn't have the opportunity to acquire great players back in the 60s because whoever you were drafted by, you were drafted by. That was it. So a lot of people don't truly understand how the NBA business was operated back in the 60s and how that affects championships. But championships is always going to be the major barometer in how players are evaluated and their performances in big moments. Now, for those who say that LeBron is playing against better teams, well, you have to blame him because he's the GM. He's the one telling the general managers to trade certain players. He's the one acting like he had nothing to do with certain players getting traded or requesting trades. At the end of the day, the reason why Kyrie requested the trade away from Cleveland is because he knew that LeBron James's business partners were trying to find a way to get Eric Bledsoe to Cleveland and get him out of there. They wanted to bring in Eric Bledsoe and Paul George, and LeBron was ready to accept that. But he just did not want to be forced into signing an extension. That was the only reason why that initial trade did not go down. And now Kyrie heard about it and he said to himself, you know what? I can't play with this traitorous ass nigga. That's all that happened, allegedly.
Gee, he didn't have a field goal made. 5 minutes left in the second till 5 minutes till the end of the game, where, by the way, he walked off the floor.
And the game was over.
Right, and the game was over.
And you know the proof that LeBron James mentally was not in this game? Because he's the most stat-conscious player in NBA history. He came into the game, I believe, 35 points short of passing Michael Jordan for the most points scored in a playoff run. And he did not even try for that record. I think he was something like 35 points short or 33 points short. If he would have scored 33 or 34 points in this last finals game, he would have passed Michael Jordan for the most points scored in a playoff run. And he did not even try for that. So either he didn't know or he didn't care. I believe he didn't know. Because knowing LeBron, that's one thing that he would have tried to do is pass Michael Jordan something. He grows one follicle of hair every time he knows about a Michael Jordan record and he breaks it.
Can we put an end to, Chuck? Because I know you were talking about this a lot upstairs.
Hey, listen,
do you have a message? Let's show the board first, because I want you to be able to look in the camera and tell them what you told me.
First of all,
LeBron, most NBA Finals Series losses.
Hey, brothers, didn't I tell you that LeBron James should be cast with Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, and Shaquille O'Neal? He should be cast with Wilt Chamberlain and Shaquille O'Neal because he's the most physically dominant player of his era. He should be cast with Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain because of his abundance of finals losses and big game losses. That's why. He should not be cast with Michael Jordan.
He's lost since he is 6.
And that ain't all on him.
Now let's get Chuck. Chuck, can you please tell America your thoughts to any individual, male or female, who ever tells you that MJ is not as good as LeBron?
I'm just going to say this. Any media person that I see in person
Talking about Nick Wright.
For the rest of my life, who try to tell me LeBron's ain't as good as Michael Jordan, I'm just going to slap the hell out of him right on the spot.
And the reason why I say I know he's talking about Nick Wright is because I was watching the Nick Wright and Chris Carter show, and Nick Wright stated that he and Chris Carter linked up with Charles Barkley at a bar. And of course, Charles is known for being magnanimous. Charles bought everybody a beer, and they started going back and forth about LeBron James and Michael Jordan. I want to hear what Nick Wright is going to have to say on Monday. He and Shannon Sharpe, I want to hear what they have to say. Because after a while, even LeBron James' most ardent superfans, are going to be forced to acquiesce to the truth. Once again, no matter how deep you bury the truth into the ground, it's always going to spring forth.
Spot. Right? No question asked. The next person who walks up to me and say, LeBron James, who is amazing, as good as Michael Jordan, or competes like Michael Jordan, I'm just going to slap the hell out of you right on the spot. And I'm going to take my chances with the judicial system.
And we know he's telling the truth because Chuck has taken his chances with the judicial system before.
Kobe Bryant put on Instagram, he said he was not buying that LeBron played with these garbage. Basically, LeBron was saying he wasn't playing with anybody, and he said, we're not as good. I know you guys didn't.
Yes, as I've told you, brothers, in a previous video, Kobe Bryant has clearly decided that he's going to inject himself into the quote-unquote GOAT debate by starting to nitpick at LeBron James, and a lot of what he says bears credence. A lot of what he says can be backed by empirical data and just rationale. LeBron is trying to belittle his teammates so that he can find a way out in case he doesn't win, and he can claim that it's because he doesn't have enough help. Kobe has stated that, yes, he does have enough help, and he's not buying that LeBron is not playing with enough talent, and Kobe's correct. Players like Rodney Hood and George Hill, they're more than enough. Kevin Love, they're more than enough talent to compete to win at least one game in this series. For you to get swept, that's an issue with your leadership. That's an issue with your style of play. Bottom line.
You guys didn't like that, but Michael Jordan's going to shoot 40 times if he has to. Kobe Bryant is going to say, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm the man. I'm going to go down on the sword.
Let me say this very quickly because people are fond of saying this in an attempt to castigate LeBron. I think that castigation of LeBron is legitimate as long as you're basing it in something substantive. When people try to compare LeBron James to Michael and Kobe and they use the rationale or the reasoning that Michael or Kobe would have shot 40 times and LeBron James didn't, that's not really what separates Michael from LeBron. What separates Michael from LeBron is his ability to play in a myriad of ways. LeBron can only play in the LeBron James system. Michael showed that he could play in a system that was Michael Jordan-centric under Doug Collins, and he showed that he could play in a system where he could be off the ball, like he did in the triangle. Why is that? Because he was trained to do so at North Carolina. So he was far more malleable. He was far more adaptable in regards to his various styles that he could play. LeBron James cannot play in another style. So once a team is able to shut down the LeBron James system, which all high IQ basketball teams have shown that they can do, whether it be the Spurs in 2007, the Mavericks in 2011, the Warriors, the Spurs in 2014, once teams show that, LeBron loses heart because he can't play any other way. So it's not really about how many shots Jordan would take in a big game. Jordan's going to play smart on the offensive and defensive end. As we saw from this series, LeBron James no longer plays defense. He doesn't care to. I've been telling you guys that for the longest time. That's why I did a video a long time ago called Will LeBron James Run Out of Gas? That's the reason why he was not playing defense, because he was running out of gas. I did another video called LeBron James is the slowest player in the playoffs. Why is that? Because he was conserving energy so that he can glorify himself on offense. In regards to Casey Stern bringing up Kobe Bryant, look, a lot of Kobe Bryant's borderline homosexual fans get upset with me when I mention this, but at the end of the day, Kobe Bryant is the most overrated superstar in the history of basketball. The man gave up a 3-1 lead to the Phoenix Suns, and he decided that he was not going to shoot in Game 7. So please don't bring up his name when you're talking about players who go out on their sword. That shit is so overrated when it comes to him. I don't want to hear that. There's no game that LeBron James has played recently in comparison to what Kobe Bryant did against the Phoenix Suns in 2006. The poor performance that LeBron James had in Game 4 of the 2018 NBA Finals is nowhere near as bad as the performance that Kobe Bryant had in Game 7 of the 2006 NBA playoffs against the Phoenix Suns, where he decided that he was going to give up. That's what he did.
He didn't defend Durant. He took 13 shots. I don't know how else you look at it, Webb.
Well, he didn't defend Durant because he didn't want to get lit up on defense. Plus, he needed to save energy for the offensive end. At least that's what he tells himself, and that's what Ty Lue allows. Remember, they don't practice. So what type of defense could they possibly be playing?
Well, yeah, you look at it. I mean, Chuck said it all. I mean, that's why Chuck's one of the best on TV. He just gives it to you like it is. And so I can't add any more to that. I would say this, though. After the comments the other day that we don't have a team and, as good of a team and there's less room for error, then that means you take it upon yourself and you handle it. That means you...
And when you say that you don't have quite as good a team and there's less room for error, you know how less talented teams make up the disparity against more talented teams? By making sure that they execute better. So when LeBron James states that we don't have the talent of the Golden State Warriors, that means that for you to get swept, the system that you're running is nothing in comparison to the system that the Golden State Warriors are running. The defense that you're playing is nowhere near in comparison to the offense that Golden State is running or the defense that they're playing. So the issue is on execution and schematics. It's not so much on talent because you got to the finals. When teams get swept in the finals, it's normally because of a schematics issue.
That means you do it.
Or injuries.
Again, Rodney Hood, he was the sixth man, took the most shots on the team. And I really thought it was unfair for these guys because some of them look like deer in the headlights because they've never been on this stage before and they're not expected to be those scorers. And
that's when you need a real system to calm the players. When the players are showing that they have no experience, what calms them is the system. That's what Phil Jackson told Michael Jordan in the 1991 finals, Game 5. He told Michael Jordan, Michael, who's open? He forced Michael to say John Paxson's name.
And as fans, just as fans, this is when you want to see the best player in the game today put the team on his back and make something happen.
But what bothers me, these two guys are great players. Great players. When you're the best player on a team, everybody feeds off you, good or bad. Good or bad, they feed off you.
This fool waits until they down 0-3, Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Now he wants to sit on the bench and go over defensive principles and where everybody's supposed to be and be yelling and screaming. Dude, you're playing the worst defense of any great player in the NBA by far. You're playing a James Harden level of defense. The defense that James Harden was playing 2 years ago is what LeBron James is playing right now, and nobody says anything. And you notice they used the same excuse for LeBron James that they were using for James Harden 2 years ago, that he's doing too much on offense. You know what that means? That means that you need a new offensive system.
And you could just see, like, early he's passing it, just going through the motions, and he didn't get going, so the rest of the team didn't get going.
And still, he refuses to get in the low box, post up, and conserve his energy on offense so he can try to guard on defense. What's the point of all that working out and lifting and using performance-enhancing drugs, allegedly, if you're just going to gas out every damn game? Like, come on, man.
And then when things got out of hand in the third quarter, it was really over then. I'm just disheartened because, listen, I didn't win the championship, but I always competed.
Well, Chuck, I'm not quite sure about that. You didn't win the championship, but to say you always competed, and, you know, look, I feel a little sympathy, a little empathy for Charles Barkley for never having won a championship, but he has no one to blame but himself. I give him a mulligan for 1993. He lost to the best player, certainly of the modern era, and arguably of all time, that being Michael Jordan. But in 1994 and 95, he had a chance against the Houston Rockets team that only had one superstar in 94, and in 95, they had one superstar and an aging superstar in Clyde Drexler. They gave up a 3-1 lead, the Phoenix Suns did, so he had his chances. Charles just tries to make everyone remember the loss to Michael, as if to say, well, I'm really a champion, but I just met up with Michael Jordan. No, you had other chances, Charles Barkley. You failed. And there were certain games where you were nowhere to be found, especially in the 94 and 95 playoffs against the Rockets, where you should have stepped up more.
I always competed, and that was not competition tonight. That was like, hey, we're going to practice the game. I'm going to get some good stats.
Well, we know that's what LeBron's about. He's a stat patter.
To go from 5 minutes in the first quarter.
That's why it's so interesting that he did not put his best foot forward in trying to pass Michael Jordan's record for most points scored in the playoffs. Michael Jordan has that record. He established it in 1992. That was the season that they beat the Portland Trail Blazers in the finals.
Second quarter, to really when the game is over in the fourth quarter and don't score a field goal, that's ridiculous.
And look, let's be fair. We'll talk more about LeBron a little bit later in the night.
So anyway, that's pretty much the crux of this video. I just wanted to show brothers how many of these more prominent former NBA players, they know the truth about LeBron. He's a great talent, but to mention him in league with Michael Jordan as if he was ever on Michael's level, it's nonsense. And it's mostly something that many of these talking heads do to gain exposure or attention for themselves. People didn't really know who Nick Wright was, or even Shannon Sharpe in regards to his basketball talk, until they jumped on the LeBron James is better than Jordan bandwagon. And then, of course, bitter-ass hater, but very intelligent all-time great Isaiah Thomas, he jumped on board in an attempt to nick away at Jordan's preeminence. But it is what it is. Once again, the truth always comes out in the end. Peace.